Southeastern New Mexico's Influence Magazine show. This is our inaugural segment of the show. Southeastern New Mexico's magazine, Influence Magazine, is a multimedia project celebrating diversity in Southeastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher, 40-year career journalist and publisher of Influence Magazine. Hopefully by now you've seen this on the streets. If not, and you'd like more information about who we are, you can find us at influencenm.com. That's our website. That's influencenm.com. We're on all social media, Facebook, which is becoming Meta, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and of course, this particular show will be found on YouTube. Go to your search bar, put New Mexico's Influence in the search bar. When you get to the show, by all means, we encourage you to subscribe, give us a like or a thumbs up, and hit that bell so that you don't miss any future episodes. And coming on the show today will be a featured guest who is celebrating and doing significant work in the spirit of diversity. When we come back, we'll bring her on. We'll be right back.
Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or rent a home, you've come to the right place. Welcome Home Realty. With over 40 years experience in real estate, Micah Swartz and Sharon Carr are well known throughout the community. Welcome Home Realty is your best source in Alamogordo, Tularosa, La Luz, Cloudcroft, and all other areas within Otero and Lincoln Counties, New Mexico. Welcome back to the show. And before I bring our featured guest on, let me just introduce you to her background. Dr. Felicia Fontenot is the newly elected president of the Society of American Indian Dentists, SAID. She previously served for 5 years on the SAID board as a member at large and secretary. Dr. Fontenot recently returned to her home community on the Mescalero Apache Reservation here in New Mexico to serve as dental director of the Mescalero Service Unit and Indian Health Service Facility. She is a graduate. She's got a bachelor's degree in human biology from Stanford University and her master's in health science at Johns Hopkins. While attending school, she attended a presentation that revealed to her that Native Americans suffer from the highest level of oral health disparities in the country. And the lack of Native American dentists could be a reason why. Dr. Fontenot attended the University of Pacific Arthur A. Dungoroy. I don't know if I pronounced that right. She'll let me know. School of Dentistry in San Francisco, where she graduated as the first Mescalero Apache dentist. Very interesting. Dr. Fontenot and her husband, Dave, have a 3-year-old son named Freddie and enjoy living in the Sacred Mountains where they are close to family. Let's welcome Dr. Fontenot to the show. Hello, Felicia. Welcome to the show.
Cedric. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. We've got some questions here we'd like to talk to you about, but before we do, just share with our viewers a little bit about your background. Where you grew up, where you're from, that kind of information.
So I am from Mescalero. I am the oldest of 7 kids. So I grew up on the reservation, and I think as a typical oldest child, I was always interested in taking care of my family, my siblings, and planning. And I attended my mom's prenatal appointments. So I was really interested in medicine and healthcare. And I initially thought I wanted to be an OBGYN, just going to all those prenatal visits. But at that time, I was aware from a very young age about our healthcare system. And I wanted to do something to help improve the health status of my people. So from as young as 6th grade, I knew I wanted to become a doctor, but I wasn't sure what kind of doctor I wanted to become. Yes.
Okay. And then you pursued biology as a major.
Yeah, so when I was at Stanford, I was pre-medicine. And at that time, even though I was into the sciences, I loved working with my hands. I actually co-led a group with my best friend from Stanford where we create traditional regalia, which is Native American dress, beadwork, moccasins. And it was mostly for the powwow style of dancing that we did that. So throughout college, I was sewing and beading, and I loved working with my hands. But at that same time, I was still geared towards becoming a physician, possibly a primary care physician.
Okay. So I prepared with some diversity questions, and just let me know if I get out of bounds on any of these, okay? Pull my coattail, Felicia. So do you feel diversity, equity, and inclusion has come of age as more of a reaction to a crisis or as a proactive business strategy, even in your profession and community?
Mm-hmm. So when I hear if diversity and inclusion has come of age, I think, are we really full force with diversity and inclusion? Many years have brought us to this point, but if we look to 2016, we see that it's rather contentious and it's very polarizing. And I think businesses, they are getting on board with diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and things are improving. And there are plenty of hospital studies to show that when hospitals are run by diverse individuals in the C-suite, so that's people from different backgrounds, men and women, those hospitals perform better financially and they have higher patient satisfaction than hospitals primarily run by older white men. So we know diversity is a good business strategy. But I think we also shouldn't use that to sugarcoat things, because we need to look at what's behind that, and we can't allow ourselves to forget that racism is a public health crisis.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. Absolutely. So how has your background or your experience kind of prepared you to be, an effective in an environment such as what you just described?
Well, I'm very proud to be Mescalero Apache. Growing up, I never thought that I couldn't do something because I was female or because I was Mescalero. Even though I didn't see any other female or Mescalero Apache dentists or doctors, I knew that I had the support of my community if I decided to leave and go pursue those things. And so I was very naive when I left for Stanford, and I thought the world was just going to open up to me. But there was lots of trials and times where I maybe didn't succeed initially, but during that time, I learned to know that the definition of success isn't just straightforward. It's falling down and getting back up again and trying again. So I think that's something that's passed down from me by my ancestors. So it's that burning desire of resiliency. So going through a lot, trauma, hard times, challenges, being questioned by people who don't look like you, asking you, why are you here? Mm-hmm. And then learning to overcome that so that I can help other people like me see me and maybe decide to go forward too, so that they can help our people as well.
Doing your undergrad years at Stanford, that's the Bay Area, California. Mm-hmm. What was that environment like? Were you one of a few Native Americans, and did you get a lot of maybe double takes and questions?
Well, Stanford was wonderful. When I went to college, I was very naive. So I was used to seeing people from my home community and, majority people. But when I went to Stanford, I had never seen in real life much diversity like Asians or Middle Easterns. So it was eye-opening for me. And at that time, I was so lucky to be welcomed by the Stanford American Indian community. So the Stanford American Indian Cultural Center and the Stanford American Indian Organization is huge. There's a strong student body of American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian students. So I strongly encourage any Native college-seeking student to consider Stanford, because the community is strong. And there was times when I didn't think I was going to make it, but it was because of the strength of that community that I was able to get through. And I had a voice there, and I had advocates while I was at Stanford.
And it's not easy to get into Stanford, so you must have been pretty exceptional through high school with grades and everything else.
Well, thank you. I attended Ruidoso schools from kindergarten through 12th grade, and I admit I felt really strong about my ability and my capabilities. And when I got to Stanford, it was an eye-opener. It was a totally different game. And whereas I went and I took the ACT and SAT without any practice, because I thought that's how everyone did it, I was shocked to learn that my classmates had preparation for many years from middle school, and that they knew how to study, they knew how to plan their schedules. And I was just kind of going with it because I hadn't been trained otherwise.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about SAID. First of all, describe the organization and your role.
So the Society of American Indian Dentists was founded in 1990 by our founding member, Dr. George Blue Spruce. He's a Pueblo Indian, and we are so happy that he is still around to guide and mentor us. And I first saw him as a graduate student at a conference, and he was talking about his life and his career in dentistry. And I was still pre-medicine at that time, but I thought, that's so interesting. I had never considered a career in dentistry. I didn't know that dentists were doctors. And so I happened to approach him, or actually it was by fate. He sat by me at one of the conference lunches. And so I started talking to him and telling him, hey, it was so good to hear you talk. I'm interested in medicine, but I'd never considered dentistry. And he invited me to apply for a scholarship to come see a dental school in Arizona. And that's where my path really changed. And SED is a grassroots organization, and we're growing and growing, but really it's that personal touch. So us as mentor dentists reaching out to Native students who might have an inkling of an interest in dentistry and encouraging them and showing them that it's possible and this is a valuable career and that they can do it.
So what does it mean for your organization to have a commitment to diversity?
So American Indians, Alaska Natives, we have the worst oral health disparities in the world, or in the country, I should say. I'm not sure about the world, but we also have the lowest representation of professionals in our field. So our commitment to diversity is trying to reach to Native American students from a very young age to get them engaged and to let them know that they can become a part of this profession, which has primarily been held by the majority. So having themselves see themselves as dentists.
Okay. And how many members do you guys currently have in the group?
So we currently have approximately 100 members. So we're still very small, but we're small and mighty, and we're hoping to continue to grow. And we also work with other organizations, the Hispanic Dental Association and the National Dental Association. So we're joining forces to help each other meet the needs of our underrepresented communities.
Collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in your experience, what are some of the challenges that members of historically underrepresented groups like your group would have just to practice the craft?
One of the challenges is feeling invisible. As a Native American person, we are often left out of statistics. And when you're left out of the data, you're left out of opportunities, financial opportunities to create improvements and change. So being invisible, that's a challenge. And then when you are visible, I think there's those personal challenges, feeling like you don't belong, or having that little voice say that, maybe this isn't for you, and having to battle with that every day while still getting through a really challenging and rigorous curriculum to become a dentist.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of your members experience the same type of feeling and just, observing that they're so different than the norm that they've got to kind of acquiesce to assimilate?
Well, I think so, but I think for a lot of us, it's, we don't forget who we are or where we come from. We're reminded of that daily in our interactions with patients who may be like, are you the dental assistant? Or I was expecting a white man. So I think I'm reminded every day of who I am. I don't think I could assimilate very much, but it is a challenge. And I think Native people, when they're pursuing other professional careers, they may have the stresses of other things going on. Not only is it that there wasn't someone there before them to pave the way, but remembering their relatives back at home, and there may be things going on at home that they can't really share with their peers because they can't relate to that.
What types of strategies have you guys implemented to help with that for your members?
So we're trying to become more visible, and then really just having that personal touch. So reaching out and calling our students, trying to welcome them into the organization, somewhat formally pairing mentors and mentees based on interest or preference. So I think that's what we're trying to do to support these other members.
Okay. Can you recall a time when you had to give feedback maybe to a colleague regarding something that had to do with diversity or lack thereof?
Yeah, I think, it's something that I find myself doing frequently. Sometimes I'm asked about it. I feel very lucky that I went to the University of the Pacific School of Dentistry, and I've often been consulted on what we can do to improve things or improve the environment to recruit more Native American students. And then there's times where I feel it would be easier to be silent, but I know that's not going to feel right. But then there's that stress and pressure and emotional weight when you do try to express the importance of diversity to someone who isn't receptive to hearing that. So it's always a struggle. Yeah.
There's a community that's somewhat in denial or not interested in changing things or seeing change take place as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, so that's interesting. What's your vision of diversity as it relates to future generations? What do you see down the road?
Well, I find it an honor and rather humbling to do this interview today on Martin Luther King Jr. Day in observance of that. And my vision is that we will teach our children better, because if we're looking back at racism, this isn't something that children are born knowing or practicing. It's something that they learn. And I truly believe if we're going to diversify, because we are a diverse nation, but be accepting of diversity and promoting equality and inclusion, that we will teach our children better. So my vision is that we will have that in the next generation.
So you're pretty encouraged that your 4-year-old, as he comes up, it'll be a little easier than it was for you.
I am, and I'm trying to show him things that as a woman, that I'm a strong role model, and that there's a lot that I can do as his mom. I can comfort him, but I also go to work, and he knows that I go and that I fix people's teeth, and he's very aware of that I'm a doctor, and I want him to know that, that he can pass, and he has that privilege of passing. But I want him to know that that everyone can do, that everyone has this potential, that they can perform, and they shouldn't be judged based on their appearance.
Very good. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with more questions for Dr. Fontenot. We'll be right back.
Anita DeFrance, Olympic medalist, Vice President of the International Olympic Committee, defender of sport, a living legend, and role model to countless young athletes worldwide, has relaunched her memoir, My Olympic Life, now available on Amazon.com in Kindle, hardcover, and paperback. My Olympic Life details the tireless struggle of a young African-American girl who battled through incredible setbacks in order to captain the first American women's rowing team in the Olympics, who won the bronze medal. Following this momentous achievement, Anita continued on to become an advocate for athletes' rights when sport and politics clashed during the controversial U.S. boycott of the 1980 Moscow Olympic Games. The torch of responsibility was once again thrust upon Anita, but this time she had her sights on leading the U.S. Olympic women's rowing team past bronze and into gold. However, while she and her fellow athletes desperately tried to compete in the 1980 Olympics, the former champion faced harrowing opposition, which included personal conflict with U.S. President Jimmy Carter, who was forcefully supporting the boycott in the name of political maneuvering. Following her battle with some of the biggest names in American politics, Anita once again turned her attention towards becoming a powerful advocate for athletes and spreading the spirit of the Olympic Games throughout the world. In 1986, Anita was chosen to become both the first African American and American woman to join the ranks of the International Olympic Committee, or IOC. In recent years, Anita once again proved to be a powerful force for fairness and justice in the international athletic community. Using her position and influence as a member of the IOC, she was directly involved in uncovering an international conspiracy to cheat the Olympics via government-sanctioned, organized, and clandestine drug doping programs. Find out the full story and learn about the incredible journey of the Olympic champion, Anita de France. Her story will inspire you, move you, and even provide an inside look in the mind of an Olympic athlete who not only overcame adversity, but conquered it on the road to victory.
Welcome back to Southeastern New Mexico's Influence Magazine show. Today we are with Dr. Felicia Fontenot, who is the current president of the Society of American Indian Dentists. And we are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Welcome back, Felicia.
Thank you.
So let's continue with where we left off. You sort of had a vision for the future. You're very encouraged. Things are getting better so that when your son comes of age, it'll be a lot easier for him than you. But how about for women? Has things changed? Are they getting better? Or how you feel about that?
I think, things have changed and are improving, but we have a long way to go to make sure that women are equally represented. I talked a little bit about the C-suite for healthcare. And right now, even though women make about approximately 80% of the workforce in healthcare, they probably make less than 25% of the C-suite, if that much. So there's a lot that we need to do to put women into higher positions of leadership because we are qualified and we can do these things. But I think there's challenges. I think back to myself as a mother, being pregnant and working. And then after having my son, I'm very proud. I was able to, he was breastfed for the entire time. He never had formula. But that was really hard because I was working, seeing patients, and making time to go pump breast milk. And I was very fortunate at the hospital I was at. We were supported because we had mothers' rooms to pump during the times that we needed to. And I had a really understanding and caring boss who allowed me to do that. But when I say the word allowed, it doesn't feel right. We should just see that as a normal part of professional women who choose to have children, that we need to do those things to take care of our babies. So there are challenges, and I think things are getting better, but I do hope for more improvement.
Okay, very good. So to whom much is given, much is required. You've heard that before, right?
Yes.
So how do you feel about you being a role model?
I take that very seriously. I definitely, that resonates with me. I feel that I need to, anytime there's an opportunity for me to do good, I want to bring others with me because success is so much better when you share it with a team rather than just standing on the top alone. And so every opportunity that I have to bring someone up with me that I've seen some kind of talent or skill, I make sure I do that. Outstanding.
We get the privilege of interviewing a lot of leaders from diverse sectors and backgrounds and ethnicities. One of the things we've learned over time is that most leaders are readers. They are always reading something. And their favorite go-to book is typically found on their nightstand. What book is on your nightstand?
Well, I have several, and I read a lot. I love reading. I attribute that to me doing so well in school as being an avid reader from a very young age. And I think when you want to be a leader, people think, well, I got to learn how to control people and put them to work, and so they'll follow me. But that's not true. To be a good leader, you really need to reflect on yourself and do the self-work. So I always go back to the 4 agreements.
The 4 agreements.
Yes, by Don Miguel Ruiz. And if you can do the self-work and follow those 4 agreements, that's a great starting point to developing yourself as a leader. And one of those 4 agreements is to not make assumptions. But to not make assumptions requires us to have impeccable communication with others. And I think, communicating is so hard. It's just the biggest challenge, with anyone. And so another book I recommend is Crucial Conversations. So that can help break it down to how to have a really difficult or challenging conversation with someone rather than suffering and living in fear about what the outcome will be. You can feel emboldened to make that conversation happen. So I do recommend those. And there's another book that I just have to mention. It's not related to leadership, but I think it's very relevant for this time as we're in the pandemic. Several years ago, I tragically lost one of my younger brothers, and one of my good friends gave me this book. It's called Keep Going, The Art of Perseverance. And it's by a Lakota man, Joseph Marshall III. And I think a lot of us have lost family and friends during the pandemic. And if we've been fortunate enough not to lose anyone, I think we're still grieving our way of life before. And I think there's a lot of valuable insight from this book to help us to keep going through this challenging time.
Let's go and keep going. Okay. I'll have to look for it. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a good book. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show, first and foremost. Secondly, if folks, any of our viewers want to get more information about the organization or maybe even reach out to you, how could they best go about that?
The best way is to find us on our website. So we are at thesedonline.org. And if you Google the Society of American Indian Dentists or American Indians in Dentistry, I'm sure you'll find us. And we have a Facebook page, and we also just are recently new to Instagram. So we're developing an Instagram presence. So I think we're pretty easy to find.
Very good. Well, again, we'd like to thank you for coming on the show, and we'd like to thank you for tuning in. And each episode will be introducing you to influential individuals like Dr. Felicia Fontenot. So stay tuned. We'll see you next time. And again, if you need more information about the organization, because you'll hear a lot from us, you can find us at influencenm.com. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher. We'll see you next time.